Spoilers in this video. So the new man-child god, Nicola, steals the body of his simp, Moog, to resurrect his true boy toy. We'll get to that. And it's up to Ye Tarnish to venture to the land of death. And well, just do more of that, to be honest. Most living things in the land of shadows want nothing to do with you. Shame we don't share the same inclination. On your journey, search out new bosses like Dragon, or Two Dragons, maybe another dragon, or Man-Dragon. Dude, you need to get a new thing. Jesus Christ. In the DLC that the internet is saying is near impossible and super difficult, guys, if it's really that bad, why did Iron Pineapple do a level 1 naked build through it? Checkmate Reddit. But jokes aside, some things are a little bit too hard. Okay guys, I haven't slept. I have been playing the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC pretty much non-stop. And after donating about 40 hours of my life to the Chad god Miyazaki, I swear like 20 of those were on the final boss alone. We'll get to that. I want to ask the question, was it really that good? Because if you check out the Steam page, it's surprisingly up for debate. And actually I take that back, I can honestly see why. The game does have a few issues. Now last week we released a pretty big video going over the base game of Elden Ring. So if you haven't checked that out, please go give it a thumbs up, go in the comment section, tell me my opinions are trash, I get off on that shit. The structure of this video will be a little bit more of an overview rather than a follow my journey beat by beat, as you can honestly go anywhere and everywhere whenever you want in this DLC. Nothing really cuts you off. So let's begin. So after you have defeated Radahn and Moog, we can high-five this vitamin D deficient hand to awaken the land of Shadow. Miyazaki said that the DLC will be about the size of Limgrave. Well, that was a goddamn lie. This DLC is huge, and honestly almost feels like a standalone title. God damn, I feel so sorry for the devs. It's definitely the biggest DLC FromSoft have ever made. And it comes close to taking the crown as my favorite from the old Hunter DLC for Bloodborne. But almost. That is god tier DLC. Man, I just want more Bloodborne, man. Now, Shadow of the Erdtree adds everything you might want. We have new weapons, we have new spells, we have new bosses. Like, a lot of new bosses. And none of these additions feel like they break the base game. Except whatever this guy is using. Like, what the fuck? Dude is like Sora from Kingdom Hearts, he's just spamming triangle. The NPCs in this DLC are no joke either, they are next level stuff. Whoever does the VO work for IGON needs a raise or an award or something. The man goes to town with this role.
The pain. My arms, my legs, each lies a bloody ruin. The pain. Bale! Vile Bale! Oh, terror incarnate! There is life in me yet! I will soon feast upon your heart! Mark my words! You too shall know fear!
Honestly, it's probably my favorite Souls NPC to date. Sorry, Solaire. Now, Miyazaki is a smart guy. He knew that people will be coming into this DLC fully stacked, new game plus 7s, with the most OP builds and just everything you can do to make this game a breeze. So this absolute legend decided he will just completely change how the game works. There's kind of a unique leveling system in Shadow of the Erdtree. That means everyone coming into the game, be it a new character that they've just played for the first time or the 20th character they've built for PvP, it still feels like you're going to the wrong side of town. The difficulty spike is immense. You do not feel safe in the lands of Shadow. Every enemy will feel like it has a bloated health bar. The bosses will do way too much damage to the point where it might feel honestly broken. Now don't get me wrong, some are absolutely broken and we'll get to that. But the reason that most of the bosses do feel a bit OP is because there is an emphasis on exploration rather than just the standard new area, rush to the boss, next area. That, to be honest, most of Elden Ring was. You won't feel it right out the gate. Things are pretty smooth sailing up until you get to the Dancing Lion boss fight. This is essentially like Margit in the base game. He's supposed to push you away, make you rethink your decisions in life, apparently. As you'll head back to the open world and think, what can I do to make this easier? Now in the base game, you could go off and fight a few other bosses before you go back to Margit. But unfortunately, every boss in this DLC has that same feeling of just a little bit too tough. That's because what you need to be looking for is the Shadowtree fragments and revered spirit ashes. These things are your bread and butter on surviving the Lands of Shadow. These will not only increase your base damage and defense, but will power up your summons, bringing the bosses from one tap in your tarnished booty to maybe surviving at least 2 hits before they destroy your tarnished booty. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's make or break for a lot of bosses. Now the video might take a little while to come out, but I played this game as soon as it dropped midnight on Thursday UK time. And once I completed an area, I watched a few streamers to see how they dealt with the same area. Bearing in mind we're all new to this, none of us have played this unless they were given early access. And this new mechanic that I talked about with the Shadowtree fragments and revered ashes, a lot of people didn't take it seriously.
Damn, you got my ass. I wonder if I'm leveled for this for now.
And I think that's why most players are getting humbled pretty early on. Now, a lot of people are talking about the difficulty spike, and I don't think those criticisms are valid really on the review section, because there is a mechanic here to kind of help offset that. The people complaining about some of the lore choices and how the world can sometimes feel a bit empty, that I agree with. This is a great piece of DLC, but it's not perfect. We need to clarify that very early on. And before you think, oh, I could just come here, get a few of these little fragments and I can go back to the base game and one-shot Millennia. No, this is solely for the DLC area. So you won't be going back and skill different our collective favorite redhead. And I think this is genius. I mean, I doubt we're going to get another Elden Ring DLC, but hear me out. If we got several pieces of Elden Ring DLC, just like the Land of Shadows, it means like every time we do these areas, it would be the same difficulty. Like nothing would ever feel like, oh, I'm way too overpowered for this. You could keep leveling up your character and still go into these DLCs kind of at the same level as everyone else. To be honest, I think it's genius. It just takes a little bit to wrap your head around it. So I praise the difficulty spike where some people have hated it, but the negatives for me, like I said, is the exploration. So I love exploring as much as the next guy, and this world is a treat to just wander around. But my god, it sometimes feels so empty. Where the fuck is everything? I found 7 out of 10 times checking every corner or every nook in the otherworld would lead to either a dead end or just some fodder enemies with really no relevance. Now of course sometimes you'd find a dungeon or a new area or a pretty cool item or spell or weapon, like the standard stuff from the base game, but it seems very less likely in the DLC and it kind of makes you a bit disheartened and not really want to explore too much. Now I like to look at my opinions from the other side occasionally. I'm not a Twitch streamer. And sometimes this mechanic of not really having much around does work. For instance, I was going through this standard dungeon, it's just like in the base games, but then as you explore a bit more and deal with this pretty cool light mechanic, again, very Zelda-esque, you actually find yourself at a unique boss fight for a change, rather than just the standard dungeon room fight. Now this boss is kind of annoying, it's essentially like a firing squad. But once you do this, it opens up to this Lost Woods looking area, and it kind of turns Elden Ring into a survival horror game, where you obviously would have to maintain your resources, but the only resource you have is your life. This area works as there's not much going on and not really much point in exploring. For instance, you have to walk around because Torrent is too scared to come out and help. This is the first time this has ever happened in the game, so it's super interesting and very anxiety-inducing. And the devs don't help, they leave their own little messages on the ground. Bro, I just want to fight a funny boss. I don't want to deal with my inner demons today. These enemies here are also like impossible to beat. They take no damage and can one-shot you very easily. So you have to kind of become Solid Snake and sneak around these enemies, which again is something you didn't really have to do in the base game. It's super interesting. I like it when devs take risks and change up the gameplay like this. And through your travels, you can find yourself at a haunted castle where you fight a previously frenzied lord. I mean, we should be bros. We're both rocking those sweet contact lenses, but I did absolutely dunk on him to start with, so I feel like it's on me that we have this fight. Now, what I just described took a little while, I'm sorry, but that was one secret optional area in this downloadable content. It's stuff like that that I really wanted to experience in the DLC, so I'm glad I got to get it. I had that thrill of playing Elden Ring again. Now in the base game, I was rocking the Grave Scythe as, I mean, who doesn't love a scythe? But I wanted to change things up this playthrough. I tried using some of the new weapons in the DLC, and I fell in love with the backhand dual sword. This bad boy is so quick, and once fully upgraded, it was actually destroying my enemies faster than my Grave Scythe was ever doing. But I would be lying if I said I didn't miss the bleed damage. But I mean, just look at it go, and its sword art is amazing. It's this dash that has a couple of iframes where you're invincible, but not as much as like the Bloodhound step or anything like that. But you dash around and then go for their weak spot. It's really cool. I actually kind of felt like a ninja. Anyway, back to the start of the DLC. So we head to the first castle we can see. After exploring this place, meeting a few NPCs, we get up to the boss fight, which is the Dancing Lion Dragon. Like I said, this is going to turn people away pretty quickly, as the boss fight is pretty difficult. He uses a lot of different elements that he does mid-fight, and finding an opening is kind of hard. Your main enemy in this fight is going to be the goddamn camera. Like, what is happening? I literally have no idea what's happening right now. Defeating him though, and going forward, we do get to a familiar fate. There's a bunch of vines cutting off the endgame area that we need to go and burn away. Now, thankfully, this area is on a crossroads, so now we can kind of just go anywhere, essentially. Just know that the next objective we need to go to would be the Tree Worship Sanctum, where we can do what a Tarnish does best, create forest fires. So on our way, we head to Shadowfall Keep. But not before getting stuck on this boss fight against Relana. And this fight took me so long, like longer than Divine Lion. By this point, I had quite a few of the tree buffs, but it still was almost like an endgame boss level difficulty. A second phase is awesome though with the weapons. Like the transformation here to the second phase never gets old. But like I said before, if you get stuck on this boss, don't feel like you have to keep bashing your face into a wall. You can go around this castle and continue exploring. You don't have to do this fight. In fact, you don't have to do many fights. We get to the Shadow Keep, but before exploring, I want to point out that there is a basement level to this keep, and 100% has to be a love letter to the Dark Souls 1 New Londo area. It has the same vibe and feel, and you even have to drain the area before you can move down further. It's super rewarding to find this area, and honestly, actually made me forget the whole point of me coming down here was not to come down, it was to go up. There's not too much going on in the bottom area, but it does lead to a boss fight with a giant sunflower, and Flowey is a little bit pissed. He's not too difficult as long as you aim for his head, but be warned, this boss doesn't just have one phase or even two. You have to smack this guy silly 3 times before being able to move on. Again, kind of changing up the meta, but this one didn't really work. I found it very frustrating that he just kept coming back, and the fight doesn't change too much. Anyway, we go back and head up the keep. We get to a vertical dungeon where we fight against Mesmer's subordinates. This is a cool section, and it eventually leads to a boss fight with Mesmer himself.
Mongrel intruder. That tarnished, it seemeth. Mother, wouldst thou truly lordship sanction in one so bereft of light? Yet, My purpose standeth unchanged. Those stripped of the grace of gold shall all meet death.
Honestly, I had my money on him or Mikola being the final boss of the DLC, so yeah, I was surprised that he was here quite early on, but it's a good boss fight. But we're still not done with the keep. There are 2 optional secret areas, one being guarded by a commander on his boar. I know I said that a lot in the base game, but this truly feels like a boss I would have expected in Twilight Princess. Unfortunately, his boss fight is a bit, not good. His hit detection is wonky to say the least. And honestly, he just plays like a more difficult Rodan. It's not a fun boss fight, either on foot or with Torrent. I just seem to get hit a lot when I shouldn't. Like I said, this is a secret area. This is completely optional defeating him, but I would recommend doing it, as once you defeat him and explore further in his boss arena, you get granted 4 tree fragments. You want to grab these. The second optional area is in front of a statue just before his boss fight. Doing a gesture in front of it that you find at Bonnie Village will open up a path to probably the nicest looking area in the game. It's just quaint and beautiful, but it's definitely making my hay fever act up like a bitch. And I mean, look at the baby Erdtree. He is so cute. Exploring this area further will take us to a big finger ruin. That was weird to say. These areas are cool. There's 3 of them in the game. There just isn't really much going on. Like I said, it's kind of an issue in this DLC. It looks cool, but it's very empty. You need to explore these ruins for a quest line, but it has one thing going for it. It's filled to the brim with finger spiders. And here we have a herd of fingers making their seasonal migration. The little ones must stay close to the mother to avoid predators. Oh no, it seems the runt of the litter is running a little behind. This might be the perfect prey for a prowling tarnish. I mean, there's even a trap here where a giant one just jumps out at you and... This must be how my meat feels on the daily, because what the fuck? So speaking of that quest line, I'd like to go over a little bit. So I mentioned you have to come to these ruins. Well, you have to do it for this old codger named Yamir and his guard Jolan, who is just the perfect woman.
I've no interest in small talk. My only concerns are the concerns of Count Ymir, and you are not among them. Count Ymir's kindness is a gift. Should you cross him, you will sorely regret it. Begone. There is nothing more to say.
Yes, now call me a bad boy. After Yamir takes a liking to her eyes or something.
To help those who fight for their purpose. I'm not mistaken, am I? I can see it in your eyes. You are a fighter, are you not? Is something the matter? I've given you a map to the hallowed ruin.
He wants us to go to each of these ruins and blow the stones. After showing him we're actually quite good at blowing, he descends under his throne to an underground boss fight with the Mother of Fingers. Honestly, I'm kind of not liking the amount of finger creatures in this DLC. Can I put that in my review? 0 out of 10, too many fingers. After you defeat the Mother of Fingers, you then get a fight with Yamir himself, and then even Jolan, who will jump in. It's pretty neat, and you get some awesome gear for doing this little quest line. It is sad that we have to kill off Jolan though. On the topic of side quests, the next area I kind of want to talk about is a quest line for that shouty fellow we met earlier. And I feel like this quest line was only put into the game so George R.R. Martin could do something, I guess. It's completely dragon based. But it is a treat to explore. Scaling up the mountain is honestly cool as fuck and super intimidating. As we keep ascending, we even get to watch a couple of dragons fight each other. I assume I'm supposed to go in here and take them both on, but I'm a pussy. So IGON wants us to head up to the peak of the mountain to summon him for a fight against Baal the Dread. And if you do this, he'll help you in the boss fight. This boss fight is ridiculous. I honestly think this puts Pasiturax, what is that guy's name in the base game, to shame. And was honestly a boss fight I had to leave until I'd done everything else in the DLC. It was the final thing I did. But it's a good boss fight. And the fact that Baal is so badly hurt, and yet it still doesn't stop him dunking on me, is impressive to say the least. Alright, so that's a few of the side quests that I did and I really enjoyed, but I don't want to take up too much time, so let's head back on track and burn down this tree. And to do this, we have to head to the ancient ruins of Row. Anyone else getting Tears of the Kingdom vibes here? Has to be a reference, right? As here where we light the vines that were shut us off from the Tower of Shadow after defeating probably the easiest boss in the game. Romania is a super easy boss fight, and Miyazaki could have easily made this a shit show. This area looks like it's covered in scarlet rot, and you know he was thinking about making it on scarlet rot, right? Just fakely, it's not. The boss fight I did first try. It's the only boss in the DLC I managed to do that. All right, let's light this bitch up. Welcome to the last area of the DLC, Inner Elim, where he awaits. We'll get to it. This area is a pretty big nod to Anor Londo, back in Dark Souls 1. But this time, instead of tactically placed archers to ruin your day, they're now replaced with spellcasters that can hit you from anywhere, I guess. What the fuck? This sucks. And the big bad enemies do some insane damage and elemental attacks when they don't bug out on the architecture. Yippee! I honestly didn't have a bad time exploring this dungeon because of this. They just kept glitching. Perks of playing pre-patch, I guess. But don't worry, there's a downside to doing that. We're almost there. Tell you what I could do without though, the jump scare scorpions. This is new nightmare fuel for me. So we do some of Miyazaki's famous parkour and we make it to the sub-boss, and it's all the friendly NPCs we've met on our travels up until this point. Unfortunately, they realized I'm a bit of a douche and decide to triple threat our boy Tarnished. To be fair, they're not that big of a deal. They're very easy to stagger and they don't come out at the same time, so you can probably kill one before the next one comes through. The only one I had an issue with is this guy and his Kung Fu. Like, what the fuck? After we loot the corpses, we get some nice gear and we are here at the final boss. And considering we already fought Mesmer, then it must be Makala, right? I can't wait to put this wannabe god down and oh, it's Rodan. What are you doing here? Honestly, Rodan being here, even if it's for lore reasons, it's weak, man. I hope you guys are happy. All you fanboys that simp for this guy honestly deserve the butt pounding you're about to endure by his hand. It's like the devs didn't realize the only reason we actually liked Rodan was for Leonard. Why didn't Leonard get resurrected too? This boss fight is an absolute joke. I get having a challenge, and honestly, every boss so far, I've welcomed it. I've enjoyed the process of learning the movesets and overcoming the obstacles. But this motherfucker is too much. His hit detection is wonky to say the least. Combos I don't think you can even dodge. And he hits harder than Father when I spill his beer. It's too much, and he just doesn't let up. To even get one hit on this guy, you have to have an almost flawless encounter with his moveset, and these can take about a minute to get through for that one opportunity to hit him, and if you took damage in that encounter, you're going to use it to heal, so repeat the process. I rage quit so many sessions trying to beat this guy, and after hours of failed attempts and not getting past this amount of his health bar, I caved. I started trying to use a mimic to help with the fight, just because I wanted to speed up the process and beat the DLC. And it just made things harder. He changes aggro on a dime. He does not care that the mimic is there attacking him or whatever. He wants your ass. Honestly, whoever wanted to fight Rodan at full power, you're an idiot. He's just built different. I'd like to point out, this is just me talking about the first phase.
Aspiring Lord of the Old Order, if you have known sin, if you grieve for this world, then yield the path forward to us. To I, Nicola.
I don't even think I'm playing Elden Ring in this second phase. It's literally insane. So Nicola finally decides to show their goddamn face and then quite literally piggybacks off the boss fight. But don't worry, he gives him a power boost and now he has even more AoE attacks and he is just too powerful. You know, like in Dragon Ball Z where they were just too strong and no one could follow the movements anymore. That's how I feel in this boss fight. It might as well just be a light blinking on and off repeatedly because I have no fucking clue what's happening. And neither does my PC. Like, some moves lag the game so much. This boss fight is ridiculous. This is everything I hated about the Macalith fight, rolled up into a fist and repeatedly slammed into my face. I hate this goddamn boss. For a final fight, after such a good experience, it was such a poor decision. Gameplay-wise, on the lore aspect, it's just stupid in my opinion, and I feel like no one playtested this except Miyazaki himself, and he was gleeful. You know he loved it. It honestly feels like a Kaizo Mario mod for Elden Ring at this point. I guess on the plus side, I finally understand why the Lands Between hosted a festival in the honor of this man. He is a machine. He deserves it. I have seen countless cheese builds. I've seen like best practices when fighting this guy. But I have a rule. I never respec a character unless I accidentally did a level up wrong. I feel like if you have to completely change the character you've been building and playing throughout the game just to deal with one boss, that's stupid. I don't like it. This whole playthrough I was building like a Dex build character, and in the DLC I really loved using the fast backhanded swords doing multiple hits. Not crazy damage, but damage that slowly builds up as I get more and more hits. I like that playstyle. I don't like a boss that just says, you can't do that now. I was gonna beat this guy with this build character one way or another. But the fight is too hard. And honestly, I would have probably done Asmongold and just quit the DLC and moved on with my life. But I wanted to make this video, so in the end, I'm sorry. You're gonna be very mad at me, but I summoned some fellow players to help me deal with the final boss. I didn't take him on 1v1. And don't get me wrong, this didn't suddenly make the boss fight a cakewalk. It still took so many hours to beat this boss. For one, I forgot that when you summon people in to help you fight the boss, they get an insane health boost. So really, it didn't make things too much easier. But with the help of some other players who were rocking these cheese builds, I was able to beat, no, I can't say that. I was able to bear witness to the defeat of the new and improved Rodan. I'm sure in a few weeks FromSoft will most likely nerf his ass so players can 1v1 him a lot easier, but I wasn't waiting around for that. And with him dead, Nicola just goes, I guess? I don't know. You get a little cutscene, about them not wanting to really be a god, and no credits, just back at the Grace. Okay. That was weak, right? That didn't feel good. But we're not done just yet. If we head to the Cerulean coast, there was a path blocked off here by Mechala, and we can now go down here, and it's here where we end up in Bloodborne. Oh guys, look, Miyazaki put the Orphan of Goes on a horse. Does this mean we get a Bloodborne remaster soon? It's a pretty interesting optional boss, as you not only have to deal with the Putrescent Knight, but his horse too. And this thing, again, I don't know if you can dodge this. It hit me every single time. And like most bosses in the DLC, he has some insane AoE attacks, like this Frostfire that, again, I don't think you can fucking dodge it. Kind of a theme with this DLC I'm seeing. I feel like I would have had an easier time if I didn't change the weapon I was using and kept the Bloodhound step. Kind of ironic, right? But anyway, it's not too difficult, and that's really it for the DLC. Sure, there's probably still a lot of areas worth exploring, like maybe I did miss a few caves, but I spent 40 hours on the DLC and I thoroughly enjoyed my time. I was excited to jump back on for every session until fighting Rodan. The Rodan boss fight, to me, really ruins this DLC. And if I have one major criticism, it's that. So was Shadow of the Erdtree really that good? Yes, it was. It was a good piece of DLC. And it had to be, really. This thing cost almost the same price as the base game. At launch, you can probably buy Elden Ring for like a $5 nowadays. But for a piece of downloadable content, it is up there as one of the greats. Next to The Witcher and Cyberpunk. It's an amazing time. And like I said, getting to relive that feeling of Elden Ring again for the first time really doesn't deserve the hate the developer is getting by the reviewers right now. Yeah, my critiques are the world feels a little bit empty at times and that god-awful final boss fight. But like I said, the final boss, I can see getting the kinks ironed out very soon in a patch. So if that's the case, yeah, the world can still feel a bit empty and it probably will stay that way, but it's still a 10 out of 10 DLC. Now I played through this, tried to pay attention when I was talking to NPCs, and I have no idea what the story was, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to be devouring content from VatiVidya for months about this DLC, and I'm glad he's got some bread coming in now. Because to me, it was just a new land for me to go and fuck around in, and kill as many gods or demigods or lords as possible, because that's just what we do. I really enjoyed my time in the Land of Shadow, though most of it is optional. Honestly, you can probably blow through this DLC in a couple of hours if you just do the mandatory bosses, but it's a good time nonetheless. I feel like my money was well spent, and hopefully Miyazaki sees the benefit of pumping out maybe a couple more of these DLCs. I mean, it did sell 5 million copies in the first 3 days. That's mental. And in terms of lore, I still think there's questions that are yet unanswered in the lands between. So that would be cool to see more of it. Or I mean, we could just get that goddamn Bloodborne remaster. Come on, FromSoft, it's been years. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I would love to give a massive shout out to my patrons, Pitstab, Ali Tato, and the Shane209. Thank you so much guys. You are the Shadowfall to my Erdtree. And if anyone else wants to join the Patreon, please click the link. I do post updates on upcoming projects and stuff that I'm just kind of messing around with, and it really helps support the channel. So, well, that's me done. I will see you in the next video. And wait, I just realized I had Radagon's talisman on the entire time I was playing the DLC. That means I took increased damage. Fuck!